Never miss another strange story. Subscribe and hit the bell. Sit back and get comfortable. I have a few stories to share with you. Everything hurts. My thoughts are scrambled by a droning sound resembling millions of cicadas buzzing around in my head. And my body is broken and destroyed. I'm dying, but the Reaper is taking his time getting to me. My distressed son paces in front of me, holding the shotgun he used to turn everything below my kneecaps into pink mist. He's crying and babbling like a baby, and I don't blame him. If I had chained up and shot my parents in my basement, I would be a mess too.
It's not my fault. I didn't want to do this,
he mumbled to himself.
I needed to do this. I told them not to leave the house for any reason. And what do? They do exactly the opposite of what I tell them.
I know he isn't speaking to me, but it doesn't sound like he's talking in his own words either. He turns and looks at me.
I'm sorry, Mom.
Tears streaming down his face. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out 2 shotgun shells. Under any other circumstances, I would be screaming and pleading for my life. But now, my throat is far too dry to do anything but let out faint wheezes. He takes aim at my head, just like he did with his father yesterday. He had always loved me more. Yesterday, when my son shot my husband, he probably didn't even see him as human. Part of him was likely happy he was killing his dad. After the years of neglect, I can't really blame him. But I was not my husband. Through the years, I filled the void my husband's apathy created. And my son loved me for that. And now, he was going to shoot me in the head.
No,
he screamed as he threw down his gun. I traced him as he walked back and forth in the basement. He was having a change of heart.
You're my mother. I don't know why I thought you would hurt me. I don't know why I'm doing this. I love you, Mom.
He again walks over to me, and I begin to panic. I wanted to tell him to stay away. I wanted to croak out my death wish. I wanted to turn away as he embraced my body in a hug. But I failed. As he kissed my cheek, I unwillingly returned his favor by using the burst of adrenaline and hatred the infection gave me to take a bite out of his face. If my body was still mine, I would have been bawling my eyes out. But my body was no longer mine. And soon, my son's wouldn't be his either. He stumbles back in pain and confusion, beginning to convulse. The infection is taking hold of him. As I fell back, defeated, I cannot feel guilty. All I can feel is the buzzing controlling my broken body. And now, his. I read about it on the internet. Storming Area 51. People wanted to storm Area 51. My eyes lit up at the mere thought of it. Finally someone wants to do this. Storming to uncover the government's secrets. I'm so excited I can barely contain myself. I begin to pack up, trying to grab what I can. The day is approaching fast. The days go by, and they just go by. And soon, It is the day, September 20th. I'm so excited, but nothing happens. No one follows through with it. It was all an elaborate joke. My heart sinks. No one's coming for me. No one is coming to rescue me. Mr. Van Gogh walked with the nurse down a long white hall to an isolated room.
So, what do you guys think is wrong with him?
Van Gogh's voice crept out with confidence. Textbook schizophrenia, of course.
They always think it's schizophrenia. And you're sure you don't mind me going in and talking to him?
If I did, then I wouldn't have walked you all the way out to the solitary confinement annex. Speaking of which, here we are, room A304. You can head on in whenever. I'll be right out here. The nurse let out a strained sigh as he walked in. A boy, 10 or 11 years old, was bound to a chair in the middle of room A304. He showed no interest in the man's arrival. He just sat in the chair and stared intently at the ground.
So, you must be Samson,
he said to the boy. No response.
I'm Dr. Van Gogh.
Still no response.
I hear that you're a very gifted young man, but you're suffering a great deal.
Van Gogh leaned down, eye level with the boy, but the boy did not look up at him.
I can help.
You can't do anything, Mr. Van Gogh.
I can try. All you have to do is explain to me what's going on in your head.
There are 7.5 billion of them. The voices.
What makes you say that?
I listen to them individually. I know them all by name. Then he looked up at the man with piercing grey eyes, including you, Mr. Van Gogh.
Interesting. What else do you know about these voices?
I know what they do. Most of them scroll through the internet and watch reruns of the same TV shows all day. Then there are those that suffer and starve, beg for a chance, or just fall over dead. And then there's you, Mr. Van Gogh, a self-proclaimed doctor that believes so firmly in the supernatural that he is willing to drop out of med school to disprove his peers. The man stood up, at a loss for words.
How could you possibly?
And what you don't know, Mr. Van Gogh, is that I can make the voices stop if I wanted to. I can create new voices in an instant, and I can just as easily silence them. Van Gogh opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He pulled at his throat and collapsed to the ground with a strained sigh. And it takes so little effort, said the boy. Stephanie, he called to the nurse. Mr. Van Gogh isn't breathing. Samson's gaze fell back to the floor, listening to the voices in his head. Yes, I snuffed out her voice too. Anna spoke when she was only a few hours old. 1, 3, 5, 8. At first, her mother thought she imagined it, but her husband heard it too. Then, the infant repeated the words insistently, insinuating as well as one possibly could through a newborn's mouth. 1, 3, 5, 8. This continued until, hands trembling, her father wrote the numbers down. That done, Anna fell silent for a long time. One day, her mother said, "If you don't talk soon, we're going to have to see a therapist." "Don't worry," said Anna. "What?" "I just don't like talking." It was always like this. Anna was withdrawn and sullen, but rarely rebellious. She didn't like expending serious efforts. She would even pretend to be an ordinary child when strangers were around. "So they don't ask questions," she said. When she was 6, her parents were considering a move. They asked her what kind of house she would like to live in. She replied with an address. It was on sale, and it was a good choice. When she was 7, her mother caught her practicing lockpicking. "It makes me feel better," said Anna. They let her keep the picks. As far as they could tell, she didn't mean any harm. When she was 8, her father asked if she could pick stocks as well as she could pick locks. She replied that she could, but she wouldn't. "It doesn't help," she said. When she was 9, they went to an opera. During the intermission, she slipped away from her parents amid the crowd. The building was packed, and it was easy to lose them. Weaving around the crowd, Anna ducked into the back corridors of the theater. Avoiding detection, she picked the lock on the maintenance closet, slipped inside, pulled out her flashlight, and descended into the crawlspace. It was time. The explosives had been rigged quite thoroughly. She didn't need to study the setup now. She knew it all too well. Every one of the bombs was hooked to a single keypad. Getting help here had never worked. Getting the opera cancelled just delayed the inevitable. If they began an evacuation with the show underway, the bomb just went off early. There was only one approach left that held any hope of ending this. And so, grinding her teeth, Anna punched the numbers in. 1, 3, 5, 8. The explosion was mercifully fast, and so Anna had no chance to consciously perceive it. Nobody in the building survived. Anna spoke when she was only a few hours old. 1, 3, 5, 9. If you ever happen to pass through the small town of Glasswood, New Jersey, do yourself a favor and stop by the local farmer's market and pick up an armful of corn. It's the best damn corn you'll find along the East Coast. Known not just for its unparalleled sweetness, but for its unique ruby red hue. Every ear is covered in crimson kernels, saved from a single ivory kernel. That's actually a lot of fun to search for, like a cylindrical Where's Waldo, but it's always there. A little unintended idiosyncrasy of the growing process. Granted, while the white kernel is as edible as the rest of the cob, it's admittedly a bit hard, so you might want to toss it away if you're worried about chipping a tooth. Now, while in town, you're probably going to hear some rumors which you do well to brush off as the malarkey they are. Glasswood's just a simple farming town, and nothing sinister ever came out of such a place. No, there are no harvest rituals. That is a lie that frankly serves only to undermine the skill of the town's farmers. They grow that fine corn with their own bare hands, thank you very much. And every town in America's got its share of bright-eyed youth with wanderlust and itchy feet. So don't let the missing children's posters put you off. If there's any oddity about the town, it's that the veggies are so packed with nutrients that kids grow up a bit quicker than most. So sure, a few parents will make a big fuss over a son losing his first tooth, which happens quite often. It's something of a celebration, a coming-of-age ceremony, one might say, and it's plain silly to see any harm in that. In fact, feel free to join in on the evening's festivals, while the young man in question is giving a traditional tour of the local fields. Sadly, tours are not given to visitors. And remember to ignore the occasional crazy old coot with their cardboard signs and nonsensical yarn. You'd have to be off your rocker to give a dime of credence to the absurd idea of blood offerings. Townsfolk have filed multiple complaints against the nuts, but sometimes it can't be helped, and one or two residents just go a little loony every now and then. But every town has its local bad seeds, right? It's just unfortunate that a place like Glasswood, filled with hard workers and the most pleasant folks you'll ever meet, is plagued with such toxic balderdash. So it's best to put it all out of your mind should you find yourself in that little town bordering the Pine Barrens. And friend, I cannot stress this enough. When you're there, don't forget to show Glasswood's hard-working farmers a little appreciation by buying yourself a basket of their ripe red corn. Lord knows they sacrifice so much to make it.